at the Design Summit, New York Design Awards. I'm thrilled to meet you, Rick Bell. Hello.
Hello.
Tell me where you're from and what you do.
I'm from Brooklyn, originally. But I work at the New York City Department of Design and Construction, which is the city's public works agency. And my title there is Executive Director of Design and Construction Excellence, which barely fits on a card. But it basically means that with a great team, we push for design quality in New York on public projects that range from libraries and museums to police stations and firehouses.
Okay, so when you're talking about pushing for design excellence, take me to one particular project. Give me an example of how that manifests itself.
Right now, we're designing a firehouse. It's called Rescue 2. It's in the middle of Brooklyn. That helps to bridge the cultures between the firefighters, who often live distant from the building in which they work, and help to save lives, but they're resident there a lot of the time. Their connection to the surrounding community, sometimes a minority community, often the firefighters are not of the community, can be augmented by the architecture of the building, how transparent and connected it is. This is a building that has within its facade a bench, a point of encounter, a place where people from the neighborhood, from the firehouse could meet and talk with each other. The doors are held open so that kids in the neighborhood could see the engines, can see the apparatus. There's a green roof, and the green roof is accessible. While it's a training facility, it's open and transparent and symbolizes a connection between a project that could often be isolating.
So in comparison to how perhaps firehouses might have been designed in the past, how does this one shift the way that the fire people, or actually, those are working, they're working with the community?
In several ways, I say I wear progressive bifocals. There are 4 lenses, and the Mayor de Blasio has 4 lenses by which we look at design quality. They start with people, equity, social equity, continue to sustainability and resilience, and also talk about healthy living. So if we were to look at each and every project, and of course we don't have time, but this one in particular, starting with people, as I mentioned, the point of connection on the street. It's a street-friendly building. It's an environmentally friendly building, not just because of the green roof, but starting there, it retains water on the roof. It has environmental features, mechanical systems, insulative qualities that talk to standards, especially with the discussions in Paris, that will ultimately play out on a city level.
So this type of design thinking, I suppose, plays out regardless of whether it's the firehouse or a large public project. So you have the same kinds of principles no matter what it happens to be, and it always starts with people.
In NYC, Mayor de Blasio said that change will come building by building, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, through new technology and innovative thinking. We try to take that approach, whether a project is relatively small, a firehouse, or very large. We're working with Bjarke Ingels Group and AKRF on what's been called the Big U, after Rebuild by Design. How do you protect all of Lower Manhattan? Public housing projects like Baruch at Delancey Street. How do you change the resilient qualities of a whole city, not just Manhattan, by design intervention? That's a very large scale.
Yeah. So let's start with the large scale. That project in particular is a fascinating one, I have to say. So you're working with Bjarke Ingels. Describe then how you work with that community to create something that is a very important solution to rising sea levels.
Intense community involvement. You can't do something in isolation from the people who live adjacent to it. So, for example, if we're talking about the part of the reach, part of the stretch that is adjacent to a public housing project, community workshops in that project to talk about how something that's necessary for protection from sea level rise, storm surge, could also be enhancing access to the waterfront, not just separating people from it. What does that mean? And ideas that come from those workshops. There isn't good pedestrian bridges all along, and the highways that were built at a certain point in time and are still there isolate communities from the adjacent waterfront. Many cities, in New York is no exception. Enhancing access to the waterfront, not just for passive enjoyment, but for recreational opportunities. There are some there now. It's a park. But how do you take the federal money? How do you take the necessity of providing protection and use it to create recreational amenity, possibilities for active and passive enjoyment that don't exist now.
Yeah, okay. So that's a very large-scale one, and we've talked about a firehouse. Is the firehouse medium scale?
Firehouse is medium scale.
Okay, so let's go down to small scale. How does your job then work in a very small environment?
Well, it's a very large agency, so maybe there are 1,300
I'm getting confused with all these
people
different sizes
there.
now.
Well, I think this design summit, does it much, much better than even a large public agency. So yes, we can talk small-scale city projects like adding a handicap ramp, an accessibility ramp, to make it possible for people to enter a library, a branch library with dignity, not through a back door. And that's mandated, it's required by ADA, Americans with Disability Act, but to actually incorporate a ramp into the normal entrance sequence to a building for everybody, so that there's an inclusive, universal design, if you will, is vitally important. What I'm seeing with the Design Summit, with Design 100, is the ability to look at whether it's a bike clip, so that people in very small apartments can store bikes, or offices can store bikes in sight, or very, very large projects that connect the street to a botanic garden, as the Weiss-Manfredi project in Brooklyn. That kind of juxtaposition of scales, where you can talk about a typeface at one moment and 150,000 square foot interior design for a major corporation at another. Very few people can do that, so I commend your questioning.
Yeah. But is that kind of part of the problem, that we do separate it? We forget that when you are actually designing, whether it is a small bike clip or a font, it is as important to do it right and
Absolutely.
to do it for everyone as it is to create a large-scale, public building.
And some of the parameters are the same. For instance, in designing a font that has, for Sephora, that we just heard about a moment ago, that has a minimalist quality serif and sans serif, one of the aspects of the description of that project talked about a sense of warmth. I would say that as applied to a branch library or any other public project, it's a sense of welcome, that people across all strata, across all cuts, where people come from, doesn't matter if they're feeling that this building is for them. That could be a park or a plaza. Issues of equity aren't just about the distribution of resources. They're the sense that people feel an ownership, participation as theirs.
It's inclusivity, basically,
Right.
which is what you need to have.
Great.
How do you do that then from your business? There are a lot of stakeholders, and we've talked about it, there's the community, then there's the workers, back to the firehouse
Right.
again, how do they want to live and work? And then, of course, there's, government, politicians, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you manage each of those?
There are lots of points of view. I think the important thing as a starting point is that people listen to each other, ask the right questions, and prepared to confront their preconceptions. And most bureaucracies, mine is no exception, are meeting cultures. Decisions are made in the U.S. at meetings, not formally ratified as in some other places, but we learn from other places. The idea of designing concurrently at 3 scales is not inherent to New York or the U.S., but from other countries, Nordic countries, it's normal. What's on the table, relates to the room, relates to the building, the street, and so forth. Starting to think that there are implications even in how the graphics on the outside of a cultural facility signal to people that they're welcome there, how the wayfinding works to get people to, say, the Bronx Children's Museum. That is all part and parcel of what we negotiate and discuss at meetings, and try to push an agenda that's based to the largest degree possible on principles. If those guiding principles are coherent, clear, and not too verbose, and not too, over the top, then they become part of the culture.
Yeah, it's simple. It's good design.
Yeah.
That's how you make it work. Tell me about the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens.
Yeah, that was not a project by the Department of Design and Construction, so I could commend it without it sounding self-congratulatory. But the architects, Marion Weiss, Michael Manfredi, do work for a variety of public clients, and what they bring to the task, including at the visitor center at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, is a sense of not only only how the building functions itself or its programmatic necessities, but how it then links things. And this particular building, which I think won an award in the urban design category, not as architecture or interior space, is very much about the connection as a portal, as a gateway to the Botanic Garden, as incredible natural place, or a man-made natural place, if you will. The visitor center bridges that. The green roof on it is not manicured. It's natural.
Wild, yeah.
There's water collection not just in the building and on the building, but around it, that talks to the building as a element of a natural collection system. There's geothermal energy for both heating and cooling. The building as architecture is phenomenal, but also as it relates to a definition of how man and nature interact. That's part and parcel of what this particular building does, and a lot of their other projects as well.
Maybe a bit off topic here, but what is it that public projects can do that, let's say, corporate or commercial projects cannot achieve or will do differently?
Well, tautologically, about people. Just back to the root of the word. So if all public projects, even juvenile detention centers, even prisons, are for people, and the people are respected, and the buildings are designed in a way that talks to the needs of people, that is different. There are some great corporate interiors amongst the awards that'll be conferred tonight. It was really interesting in looking at how they were presented to, even in the slides, see how many people are in the images. And I don't want to criticize this or that project because you don't know where this is going to end up. But one of the corporate interiors that did have lots of people in it, there were 10 images with 25 different people, is different from one where a similar number of photos had no people, one dog, and 280 bottles. I won't criticize that one. It's interesting design. But how a building is rendered, both for its inception, how it literally is designed in regard to human scale, human-centered design, starts not with a Corbusian modular, but with the sense of how people live in contemporary society, how they interact, how public buildings, public places, to your question, are places of congregation, of discourse.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
That's how it starts.
All right.
It goes beyond
Simple
that.
question. Favorite project for you?
Favorite project? Oh, there's so many. There's so many.
I'm only giving you one. I'm mean like that.
Another project that we're doing in the South Bronx right now has the potential for being fantastic, and it's in early stages of design. The design is not yet approved by the Public Design Commission, but we're working on a new police precinct for the 40th precinct in the South Bronx. Very tough neighborhood. It's not changed that much. It's beginning to. That will be the symbol and emblem paradigm, perhaps, of community policing. And what does that mean? Community policing, it's a buzzword. Police chief in Chicago resigned today, or was fired yesterday, because their efforts at community policing, which start with the connection between community and facility, have maybe not gone as far as, show me the videotape, as they should. In New York, the interaction between police officers who have a very, very tough job and communities that they serve and protect is very difficult. So if a building can symbolize that connection, like the firehouse I mentioned before, all the better. This particular firehouse, the police station rather, has a different program. It has a community room literally on the outside at the entrance that becomes a point of connection. It probably will end up with an ATM machine inside the lobby so that people who are fearful of withdrawing cash on the street or in a bodega can come into a place where nobody's going to see their code or see how much money they're extracting. But more than that, it's across the street from a park and around the corner from a prison and a school. And as a point of connection, it becomes a public building that doesn't have to be a fortress. And the architecture will show that. Green roofs, for the environmental features, all sorts of things that you would expect. They haven't become cliches, but most importantly is the community connection.
The transparency and porosity enables that kind of community, certainly.
And when it's built, I'll say it's my favorite.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. Rick Bell, thank you so much.
My
Great
pleasure.
to meet
Thank
you. Appreciate it.
For being here.